Hello, welcome to my first Neptune's Pride strategy video. I'm going to overview the whole game for Sigma Wazn, and I was really keen to do this particular one because Kane just published a great video talking about the what-if moments in this game, and most of the errors were mine. So it's interesting, I think, to see it from the perspective of the loser or the person who made the mistakes, and understand how the game can unravel on you when you have the best intentions to make it go the right way for your team. So I'm going to dive into the diplomacy aspect of it, but I also wanted to spend a bunch of time talking about the basic strategies that you need to get started, which I hope will be useful for beginners and perhaps even for some experts as well, who maybe will learn a few things that are useful for future games. So one of the first things I like to do is generate an API key, and I like to do this before games start. If you watch how many people have joined a 64-player game, you can generate this when there's just 2 or 3 positions left, and those usually fill up very fast because people get excited to see that there's a game in the offing, and a 64-player game takes a long time to fill up. So when there's just the last few positions, they fill up very quickly. So in this case, I generated my API key at 1:35 a.m. on Wednesday, September 6th, and this game starts 26 minutes later at 2:01 a.m. And what generating the API key does in Neptune's Pride Agent is it lets us record the whole game in the time machine, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to walk through that replay, looking at what happened at different points, using my API key and the API keys of others that I get along the way. So without further ado, let's dive into starting setup. So in the start setup of any game, you always want to look at your position. I don't like my position here at all because I have 3 neighbors. Most players on this map have only 2 neighbors, or 2 neighbors and a distant neighbor. But this sort of central position on the circular Great Circle map is really worst of all because you're surrounded on all sides, and I'm really keen to get to an edge. And to make matters worse, this player here, this orange player Vogo, he has nowhere to go but to attack me. If you look at his range line, he literally has only stars that are adjacent to me or that are actually my stars within his reach. So he is going to be attacking me. He basically has no choice, and I don't love that. And when I go and look at this player, he doesn't look all that experienced. He's already bought all of his econ, industry, and science, so he's spent all of his money. You can tell by how large these stats are. Compared to me, I haven't bought anything yet. He's got a victory and a little bit of rank and renown, so he has played. It's not like he's not played at all, but this player clearly doesn't have a ton of experience. So my thinking here, and this is my first mistake of the game on tick 0 or tick 1, is that it's probably better to figure out how to go to war with Vogo than how to cooperate with him. And that's going to really stunt my growth. So normally I like to play a big econ strategy, and what I'll do is choose to send each of my carriers to places that they can reach before tick 20. It's very important you get there before that tick, because on tick 19, you want to be signed in and ready to buy your upgrades. So in this case, because the game started at 2 a.m. my time, the first tick happens at a very convenient 10 p.m. It just means I need to be on tomorrow between 9 and 10 p.m. at night and buy all my econ then, and I will spend as little money as possible between now and then in an effort to preserve my entire $375 for an econ buy. It takes so long to get anywhere in this game. You really don't need any industry or any science in the first 20 ticks. You really just want money, because that money is going to fuel your industry and science for the whole rest of the game, and getting that investment in early is, I think, very critical. There's another viable startup strategy called a weapons rush, where you do the exact opposite of what I just said. You buy a ton of science and you plan to have weapons too before anybody else and take them out. And in this case, because I'm anticipating war with Vogo, that might also be a critical strategy, except that I'm worried that being surrounded as I am, I'll get eaten alive pretty quickly if I don't have enough money to ramp up later. And the ramp up is going to be fast enough with econ, I think. So I'm going to go with an econ build, which is my go-to strategy, especially when there's no clear ally next to me. So in an econ build, you need to build as many carriers as necessary to reach any decent star before the 20th tick. So we've got this one here, whose goal is to get as far as Grand Avior, which is not the most awesome star, but it will reveal a whole cluster of stars here that no one else can easily get to and enable me to get the richest of those. And then Wet Atlas looks pretty great, and so we'll build another carrier here to deal with that. And at the time I had built this carrier, I thought it might get to Fort Rastaban first. As we can see, Vogo is closer, and so he's going to be there first, and so this ship is entirely wasted. We can also, though, see another newbie error here on his part, which is he didn't leave a ship behind on Fort Benishnash. Arguably, he should have even left 4 or 5 ships behind, but even just one has a fantastic kill ratio, because one ship defending is like a caltrop that really hurts the other person as they walk through your territory. Also notice he does have econ on this star, and that econ is going to be worth $10 to me if I can take it. So this is kind of a problem decision that he's made here. So we'll see how that goes for him. Meanwhile, because I have decided I'm going to go to war with him, I'm sending 20 whole ships this way with the idea of taking his 10 ships out, which is very high cost. And this is why you don't want to get into wars at the beginning of the game. It takes so many ships to eliminate just a few that it's just extremely costly. You really want to be playing defense and not offense as much as possible. Anyway, we'll pay the price for that soon enough. Meanwhile, over here, we've got really lucky with 2 juicy stars within easy reach. Both of these, again, critically getting there before tick 20, which is our first production, and so that's key. So once I've built all the carriers necessary and sufficient to reach everything I want to reach, I'm going to stop spending any money and save my $375 for the first tick of production. So meanwhile, diplomacy-wise, it starts right away. At 2:22, just 21 minutes after the game start, I've reached out to Guava Trader looking for some tech. It looks to me like he can only really go north, and so trading with me should be quite good for him because he doesn't really have a path to get to me, and I'm keen to do that. And he proposes attacking Vogo the very next morning, and so that's great. So I say let's go for it, because it looks like he could help me. But the problem is he can't reach Vogo, and my screenshots have expired. But the bottom line is Guava can't really get there. Interestingly, not much later, on Thursday, the very next day, he winds up proposing an alliance to Vogo, because in Vogo's first production, he rolled weapons, and so he's now got a weapons advantage versus us. And I wondered if Vogo would not see him as being very sincere, because it seems like kind of a fearful move to wait till someone has weapons and then offer them an alliance. But that offer of his turns out to be one of the best things to happen to me, as we're going to see in a few ticks. So I reach out to other people for trading as well, but I'm not going to walk through every single message. It's important to try to reach out to everybody around you, see who's responsive, see who's actually going to trade tech with you, and use that early tech trading as the seed for who you're going to offer an alliance to. So it's definitely worth sending anywhere between 5 and 20 messages to neighbors or potential neighbors who you're hoping to interact with, and finding out who's actually playing the game and who is not. So if we walk forward through the time machine, we can see that my first fleet is definitely lost cause over here. And instantly, Vogo starts to fly directly on to Altair. So this is a mistake, because all I have to do to defeat him at Altair is build an industry. Now, we've just talked about how I want to do an econ build and not spend any money on industry, but one advantage of having saved all my money is that I can afford to try to decide how important it is to cost Vogo this carrier. This carrier costs him $25. He's never getting that $25 back. And I can build an industry here that's going to be useful to me in a future war. And so I'm going to wind up deciding to spend that money. And so I build that industry right away. It's going to take 2 points to actually beat him before he gets to me. And so that's what I do. Okay, we're all plugged in now, so the MacBook is happy in terms of power, and we can finish looking at this scenario here. It actually required 2 points of industry to make sure that he loses. Neptune's Pride Agent calculates the production on the destination system, and the combat calc tells us that I'll have 1 ship remaining when he lands once I've built those 2 points. So I know that I'm secure there, and we're ready to go. Meanwhile, my incoming fleets are going to win by a narrow margin as they come in against his enemy planet. I can also, if I want to see a summary of it from the planet's point of view, I can click on the planet, type capital D, and then backtick to bring up the report for everything that's going to happen on that planet. And so we can see that my 20 ships are timed to arrive on the very same tick. He's defending with 8, I'm attacking with 20, and I'm going to win with 4 ships remaining. And if he had left those 2 ships behind, he could have won this combat. And that actually would have been a much better outcome for him. So this is just reinforcing my idea that this guy's a noob who might quit. This is often a game of attrition. People quit very early, and so at this point I'm kind of hoping he's going to give up and quit before we get too far. So we can step forwards a little faster because we're still only on tick number 6 in this game, and there's many hundreds of ticks to come. So if we advance here, we see that things go according to plan. I get that system. He's got more ships coming in, but now I can start playing defense and probably hold him off. He did build an industry on Fort Bennett Nash, and most unfortunately, he also rolled weapons. And so that's a real problem. We can't see that yet, but in just a few more ticks, we'll see that he does have weapons, and that's going to be a problem. I'll just advance a little further here and see that happen. I guess a little further in the future than I thought, but he is going to get weapons rather earlier than I would like. And so here we can see the kind of issues we're having. He's sending 57 ships my way. He's just got weapons 2. I'm at weapons 1. This looks grim. It's going to go bad for me. Currently, he's got 15 ships landing, and I'm losing. So that's not a good start. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the map, everybody's expanding into neutral territory, and we're going to start to see the first instances of people getting into combat with each other, and so that'll be interesting. And it's not too far different than this time that Guava proposes that the 3 of us ally. So let's have a look at when he did that. Just gotta find that message. Alright, so here's Guava's alliance message to Vogo. He sent it on Thursday at 2:32 in the morning. This is basically just after production on our second day. So this is tick 2021, somewhere around that time frame. The current time machine is showing us tick 27. And I don't see his message till that morning at 5 a.m. I say, it's amusing as Vogo has just started attacking me, but I understand he's got nowhere to go. And Vogo says he's at a crossroads, but he's willing to work with us. So all of this comes to pass reasonably quickly in terms of our offer to Vogo, but it does take Vogo until Saturday, September 9th to agree to something here. But this agreement is super crucial because it stops this war from sapping my growth basically indefinitely, because I could be sucked into just holding Vogo off for the whole game, and that'd be really bad. So this is actually quite a big tipping point, and I really owe Guava for making this offer, because if it had come from me, it would have probably seemed much less sincere. But coming from Guava, who's not really in direct conflict with Vogo, makes it possible for him to offer Vogo a path out and for us to work together and make it happen. So that's actually pretty great. So by the second cycle, I've decided Guava is reliable enough that we should enter into an alliance, and I formally offer him an alliance agreement. So one of the problems with me is I'm super wordy and kind of uptight and always on the game looking for responses. I find it really frustrating that people aren't playing constantly, and obviously that's unreasonable. But to kind of make up for that, I think I know a lot about the game. I'm scrupulously honest in my communications, and I stick to my word like glue. I like to have these very detailed alliance agreements that outline exactly what everybody's supposed to get and give, so that if somebody stabs somebody, there's no argument about whether it was agreed or not, and everybody knows where they stand. And I also always like to put expiry terms into my alliances, so that if people go AFK or if they're just not playing very well, you can say, hey, the time's up. You haven't done your part, or you're not doing well enough, or whatever. I'm done with you. So this paragraph is very important as an exit strategy against players who I'd otherwise be bound to help even when they're sucking. And that's good. And these days I like to do it all with API keys, because API keys just make everything much easier for everybody, and it's going to give us visibility into others. And Guava takes this on and agrees. And so as we advance the time machine forwards, we should see his scan data come into the game. So here's a different alliance that I enter into. Master Uguay seems pretty keen to ally from pretty early on. He shares his API key with me before I even get sending him the agreement. And so it's great. I can tell he's gonna be trustworthy and be a good person to work with right off the bat. So pretty early on, this is actually the morning of the first cycle, we are already into a formal alliance with API key sharing. We already have visibility of all of his stars at this stage of the game, so we can see what he's doing and try to help him out, and that's going to be pretty useful, I think, for both him and I later in the game. And we also now have pretty good visibility of this blue player and what's going on with him, which is awesome. Another thing that goes right for me in the fairly early game is that Yeoman reaches out to me looking for a tech trade. I love it when other people reach out to me before I've reached out to them. That doesn't actually happen that often, and so it means the player is probably pretty active and going to be a good partner. But unfortunately, he's researching hyperspace range, which in my mind is the least valuable tech in the whole game. It's very dangerous to send your fleets on long voyages. It traps them in space for a long time. You have no flexibility to react, and so long range is usually a trap. There are some special situations where you can't get where you're going without range and you've got to do it first, but most of the time I would research basically any other tech first, and in the first cycle almost always experimentation or banking is the winner, occasionally weapons, but really experimentation and banking are the go-tos. So this is a terrible thing for him to be researching, but I tell him that I can understand why he's doing it because it gives him range, but that for me it really doesn't work. And so he then wants to trade range for weapons, which really doesn't seem worth it to me. One of the best techs in the game for one of the worst. But I offer him range for manufacturing instead. And this negotiation actually works out really well for both of us here, because in the end he wants to get my tech, but he doesn't have enough money to send me the transmission cost. And I don't have enough money to lend him what he's asking for in time, but I do have just barely enough money to send him the tech and trust that he'll send me back the tech he's supposed to send me, plus an extra $9, which is what he'd offered me to get the loan in the first place. So it works out to the same cost for him, and it's better for me because I can spend that $9 on the extra econ point that I need. And this really works out well because it gets us off on the right foot trusting each other, and that's so key in the early game, is to establish a few tech trades. Someone always has to send the risk of sending the tech first. It's never really worth betraying somebody at this stage, but if somebody stabs you with their very first tech trade, you're not going to get along. If you can make that first tech trade go smoothly and establish some trust, that really help you out. And so this is the beginning of Yeoman and I having a permanently good relationship, so that's great. So at this point, I've got pretty clear alliance type situation brewing with Yeoman. I'm already allied with Uguay. I've got an alliance with Guava, and Guava's looped in Vogo, and so this is looking like a pretty good group. And so it's not long into this that I decide that we should bring this whole group together, and so I try to spin that concept with everybody on the morning of the 10th of September, so this is 4 days into the game. So we're going to have to advance the time machine a bit to get to when this happens. But by this point, I've had good success working with all 4 of these players, and I'm ready to say, hey, let's be a 5-way alliance. We can win the game if we get together. And this alliance does, in fact, last until the end of the game with 1 or 2 additions. And so this more or less works out well. But in order to talk about it more, we really need to get to tick 80 or so. So let's walk through the game and see if there's any interesting events that we want to focus on. So we have this early war situation with Fogo, and you can see here I had to retrench because he had enough ships coming in that I couldn't counterattack in time. But he keeps throwing his ships at me, and that's going to cost him, because these 55 ships are not going to make it. And I'm not sure if he's using the battle calculator or not yet at this point. But these sorts of mistakes are very easy to make in the early game when you think you're sending a huge number of ships against the enemy, but actually you're losing by a pretty wide margin, even with weapons advantage. So as he gets there, he loses, 5 ships remain, and then by the time he could afford to launch a second wave, it's relatively hopeless still. He's, I think, going to lose this one as well. Oh, no, he wins, but I get it back in just 1 tick, so it's not so tragic. So, you know, still, though, this war is sapping both of us. We've both lost a ton of ships. We're not making any progress. We're fighting over relatively valueless stars. This is a problem. We need to get into our alliance situation sooner than later. So, fortunately, Guava makes that proposal that is going to get us allied. And it's at just the right moment where we've got this standoff building here, 100 ships plus versus 77 ships. We're basically putting all our forces facing each other down in what is sure to be a thing that would cost both of us any hope at making progress in this game. So that would be bad. So this is the point at which we've actually agreed. Instead of sending his ships into me, he's going to go north, I'm going to go north, and that's going to work out way better for us. So that's great. Meanwhile, API key wise, you can see that down here at this point I do already have the API key for my friend Yoman, and we still got the first ally, Master Uguay, in the fold, and we've got Guava, and so we've got pretty good visibility of the whole map, and we can help our allies and make sure people are doing well, and that's great. So this is Tick 91, we're almost at the point where we've got everybody in the alliance, and then we'll have everyone's API keys and we can see how it goes. So that catches us up to the current state of the intel. You can see me wending my way north through a path I had to agree with Guava so I could get there, and it just takes forever to do these things, but that's how it goes. So, as of Saturday afternoon, about 110 ticks into the game, we have the 5-way alliance put together, and it's time to start gathering and sharing intel amongst the whole group so that we can operate more effectively. And since my group seems a little new to using Neptune's Pride Agent to figure these things out, I wanted to both explain what I thought was going on in the game and also give people advice on how to use the reports to get good info. And so in this case, I'm showing the trading report, and I've put it in my color scheme for tick 110, where the first alliance I could clearly conclude about was Lolo, iHexRT, Ice9, and Aussie9er. And you can see here from these 1-to-1 trades that these folks are all clearly allied. And even in those cases where there's some ambiguity about where the tech came from, it mostly looks like it's coming from players that have colored yellow. So I'm pretty confident that all these players are on the same team. And they're immediately adjacent to us to our north. So this is going to be the first team we have to contend with, and we have to figure out if we're big enough to take them out. And to know that, we can look at the All Alliances report. Press the M key to bring up the Neptune's Pride Agent menu, and it's the first report, Empires, which you can also bring up with Control L and then backtick. And in here, a good one to look at is All Alliances. So you can filter out just that table so you can focus on just the other alliances. And we can ignore the AI alliance because they're essentially useless and they're also disconnected. They're grouped together just so that you can see how big the AI are. But really what we're interested in here is how are we doing economy-wise versus the Yellow Alliance. We can see they're slightly ahead. That's always a problem. They're also slightly ahead on science, and they're behind on industry. So this looks like a challenge. This alliance is going to be a problem to overcome. They've got a production advantage in terms of science and econ. Not a huge one, but still an advantage that we're going to have to worry about. So I share that with my allies, explain how that came about, and then go on to continue the analysis here, try to figure out what's going on in the broader game. So You also really can't overlook the value of soft intel. So Master Uguay comes to the team with a really interesting thing that apparently all the green players are in one giant alliance. And it later comes to pass, I learned from Joffrey, who's just north of me, that they're all his real life friends, except for Master Uguay. So Master Uguay is the odd green player out. And that's really interesting in this map, because the way they're spread out here to new players probably looks like they can connect with each other and work with each other, and it makes it less likely that they're going to form strong alliances where they are. So right here from that soft intel, we can guess that an alliance centered on Kayn is going to be the most powerful, because they aren't kind of infected by a green player who's got this otherworldly allegiance to their friends, where they want to focus on getting connected with the other greens at probably all costs, not realizing that that's not going to be a really working strategy. So that's going to potentially open up opportunities for us in the game. And that soft intel is worth 100 statistics that tell you something. So I do the analysis for the other side of the map too, so that we can know what Uguay and Yeoman are going to be up against. And over there, their life looks pretty good. So first off, Yeoman has a good relationship with Charon the Unpronounceable, the red hexagon player in the south of the map. And their enemies are the Green Alliance there, that doesn't look too big relative to us, smaller than us in every single dimension, and a couple of AI players who should be easy pickings. So we can anticipate that Uguay and Yeoman are going to make good progress to the east, while the rest of the team tries to go north. I myself have at this stage managed to start flying in towards the AI player to my north. The AI are extremely easy to beat, and so this is going to be really good expansion for me. All these stars are going to be mine in almost no time, so we can look forward to a pretty quick expansion path. So on the evening of Monday the 11th, I decided to try to get more of my allies to participate in this big picture ideation, because right now it's mainly just me sending out the color scheme, not getting a lot of input from my neighbors. So basically I say, hey, let's figure out if we know about more alliances than just these. That gets a bit of good intel from Yeoman, who says Toe Jam and Hekun Chairs, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, look to be trading as well. And so I look into those two, and it looks like they're in with Nuck Chorus. And so that looks like a clear group based on the trade log that we see here. And so then we can update the color scheme with those folks and go have a look at what it looks like with them in the mix. So there they are. We still look bigger than them, so it's not too bad. It's feeling pretty good, actually, the way this chart looks. We seem to be bigger than all the alliances we know about so far, so things are seeming pretty positive. Once I've colored those folks red, the trade log looks very logical. We can clearly see that all the red players are allied and trading with each other, maybe doing a little bit of trading with the AI to get some free tech from them, but basically working together among themselves. There's some chance that Purple Hex is in with them, but at this point I don't feel the evidence is strong enough to lump Purple Hex in with the red players. So advancing to tick 240, almost 100 ticks later, we can get to my next big analysis for my alliance of what's going on. It is a bit late to be doing it. I should have had more analyses in between, but we got distracted just fighting the wars we were fighting and not looking at the big picture quite enough. So I do apologize to my group for that, but send a pretty detailed state of the world, and it's interesting to see what things are like here at 12 cycles into the game. So just to make this a little more understandable, I've started by importing the color scheme so we can see the groups here, and then we can read the message that describes what's going on at this time. Right, so here's a screenshot I took at the time, and as you can see, it matches pretty closely with what's on the screen, although it's from tick 244 instead of 240. Not much happens in those 4 ticks. And 244 is actually a good time to do this analysis. The production has just happened. We can look at the sizes of empires. We can look at recent trades. So in general, a few ticks after production, you can rely on the idea that most of the players who are playing will have logged in, and changes their empires will tell you what they're thinking or what they're doing. So it's always good to be on just a few hours after prod and have a look at what's going on. By this time, I know for sure from soft intel from Joffrey that all the originally green players except for Uguay are real life friends, and so I chose greenish colors for those alliances so that we could bear in mind that this fairly big group in the north and this now sizable group on our southern border are likely to try to be getting together at some point. By this time, both alliances have figured out they can't just do it with their friends, and they've added externals to their alliance. In the south, it's the Procurer. In the north, it's Lasper. And Lasper is a pretty experienced member of that group, but thankfully, they're sandwiched between Wazn and Kane, and this pincer here should squeeze them pretty hard. The date of this writing is September the 16th, so we're 10 full days of calendar time into the game and 24 cycles in, so things are fairly set in their ways. What tends to happen in these big games is that once those early alliances are set, people are very reluctant to stab their alliance, and so you can normally rely on the colors that we have now lasting more or less as they are to the end of the game. People will, of course, cede their stars to other people or get wiped out, and so the victors are going to grow, but we can basically imagine that we've got this group of alliances for a long time to come. Green players in the south, I write this relatively optimistic assessment, but in the north, I'm having a little trouble getting Vogo moving, and so I want to poke him in some way and tell him he's not moving fast enough. So I didn't want to single him out in this thread, so I also accused Guava Trader of being a bit slow, but Guava Trader's on vacation. He's kind of got an excuse, and everybody knows it. Hopefully Vogo sees this and realizes he's got to move with greater speed. And Joffrey has just been a bit of a waste of space, unfortunately. He seemed like he really wanted to work together, but I can't get him to do anything I need him to do. He's too slow at doing everything. He's never on the ball. It looks like we're going to make easy progress against IHEX-RT, but he's not sending any of his ships in. So if we go and have a look at that situation over there, I've been able to get, ships up to this star, and meanwhile, neither Angry Cabbage nor Joffrey have anything on the move. There's actually a lot of ships, if you look around here, not moving. Carriers not moving, ships just building up on stars. This is the mark of a player who really is not paying a good level of attention to what's going on. He should be funneling all of his ships west, east rather, funneling all of his ships east as fast as possible, trying to mass up enough that he can break into these stars, and he's just not headed this way. Meanwhile, my assessment on the west side is that Uguay and Yeoman should be able to do a good job. With Charon on their side, should be pretty straightforward for them to push over those players. We will need to figure out if we want Charon in the alliance, and we need to either bring him on as a full member, or if he's not doing well because he's on the fringe, see if he can do a handover, or wipe him out. And at this point, my feeling is we should just delay that. He's on friendly terms with Yeoman, that's working for us. We don't really need to bring him to the alliance yet. We don't need to decide what's going on. There's no strong player on the other side of him who's likely to convince him to turn against us. So it seems like a good bet to just sort of play along with him and keep him friendly with Yeoman as a current position. And then as we wipe out the green players in the west, it's possible that'll affect our relationship with Joffrey. And so I want everybody to be aware of that because, they're friends. Maybe that will wind up changing what's going on in the north. And then, of course, I asked people for intel that might contradict all that analysis, but it seems pretty good. And then at the time, I also record the alliance state for everybody so that we can go back and look at what it was like on tick 244 without having to use the time machine. And as you can see here, this is actually looking pretty good for us. We are ahead in almost every metric except for ships per hour. We have more actual ship inventory than anybody. Even the giant pink-purple alliance that Kane has put together is not ahead of us in any significant dimension. We have more econ, we have more science, we have very similar industry. So this is looking like a pretty good state. Also by this time, I've ramped my econ. I have the most science in the game. We can see that by looking at the Empires leaderboard. This is a much better leaderboard to look at than the main game leaderboard. So the main game leaderboard sorts people by stars, and stars is just not a good metric for figuring out what's going on. This is great for us because it means we can let people like Wazn and Kane be at the top of the leaderboard. Yeoman's in the top 3, sure, but most of us aren't appearing up there, so we don't look like as big of a threat to all the players who are just looking at the leaderboard as their main way of judging it. What you really want to be doing is sorting this table by econ and looking at this. Now here, we don't look as strong as I'd like, but at least we've got 2 of the top 5 positions and a friendly player in the 3rd of the top 5, so that's not so bad. We also want to sort it by science, and here the picture is rosy. I have the top science in the game by a pretty good margin at this stage, 7 points more science than Wazn, who's way behind on tech. I also have the best weapons in the game, and that means we'll have a lasting weapons advantage as long as I can maintain that relatively happy situation. And then ships per hour is not a bad metric to look at. It's a little early to be worrying about this, but later in the game this starts to dominate. Right now, we're not looking so good on ships per hour, and ships per hour makes it clear that we're going to have a real problem with Kane's alliance. 3 of his players, and they only have 4 total, are in the top 3 positions for ships per hour. So even though their individual ship inventories are lower than ours, that's a scary sight. We know that's not going to last long. We know that if Deep 6 ever comes at us, it's going to be bad. Jarmusch doesn't look like as big of a problem because he's further away, but he's also going to be a real threat later in the game. So this is the way to look at it. Number of stars, not really that important. Econ build-up, science build-up, and later industry build-up are the most important metrics in the game. And roughly in that order. Econ is the most important thing right through to the mid-game. Science becomes important at the beginning of mid-game through to the end game, and industry is important in the end game. So sorting by stars, waste of space. Sorting by ship inventory can sometimes be helpful, but mostly just for figuring out where you're at versus other alliances today. Ships per hour is a great metric because this takes into account the manufacturing level of the other players and their production, so it's better than just looking at industry. In this case, they match up, but sometimes people can have higher industry than you, and because you're ahead on manufacturing, you're ahead here. So this gives us a pretty good idea what things look like on tick 244, and the all alliances table makes the picture look pretty good at this stage. At this stage, I'm of the belief that we could win the game. Haven't yet made the most crucial error in this game, and we're ahead on weapons, and things are looking pretty good. And as I was saying, the date here is about 10 days into the game, about September 16th, and I'm about to get a very critical message from Wazn, which should alter the course of the game in a very important way for us. So this message comes in just 4 days later on Wednesday, September 20th. We're 2 weeks into the game at this point. So Wednesday, September 20th is a little bit further ahead in time than where we are now. So we're going to advance to this time, have a look at what the map looks like and where we're at, and then we're going to come back to this message. But Wazn reaching out to touch base is huge because at this point, Kane is actually actively clobbering me, and getting Wazn to work with me would be huge because it would be the 2 of us against Kane, and that would be a winning scenario for him and possibly a winning scenario for me. And so it's a very good, evenly matched alliance. We both need each other. We both want to be in a 2v1 versus Kane, and that's going to be a winner. And so on the 20th of September, life is golden because that looks like it's going to happen. Going back to our overall tech thread, we can see what things looked like to my team at that time. So one surprise to Yeoman from my tick 244 analysis is that I lumped the Procure in with Yeah and Steve Tall, and he was surprised by that. But again, this was just a pretty straightforward look at the trading report, see how the tech is flowing. A lot of tech coming into the Procure from those guys. Looks like they're definitely on the same team. We get some soft intel on the topic where Steve Tall refers to the Procure and the Knights of the Knee as supporting him as opposed to full allies. But it's still pretty clear that this whole group is working together. Earlier I talked about my frustration with Joffrey, and the way this evolved is I'm still trying to help him and giving him the best advice I can, and at the same time I'm telling Vogo to go ahead and attack him and take him out, and I'm telling Joffrey that I'm encouraging Vogo to attack him and he needs to step up his game and do something about it. And so I'm kind of playing both sides of it, but I'm very open and honest with everybody. Joffrey knows I'm trying to help him, but he's not listening, and Vogo knows that Joffrey's not playing well and he's just not long for this world, and so this hopefully works out for everybody. A really interesting side effect of this decision is pointed out by Kane in his video, where he notes that because I have to split my way to go around where Vogo is, I don't have good access to the front. And that really does cost me in the war versus him, just like he says, because I can't easily shift forces from one side to the other. I have to split my forces on either side of Vogo. And, I mean, Vogo is definitely more active and doing better than Joffrey, but he's not the fastest player either, and so it's a bit of a problem because he can't expand into Joffrey fast enough. My original goal was to have Vogo take all of Joffrey's territory and own the west side here. I would be coming up the middle, and Guava coming up the right, but in the end, I wind up having to take the west side because Joffrey can't get there, or Vogo rather, can't get at Joffrey fast enough, and so this doesn't really work out. The leaderboard, though, still looks pretty good here. As of tick 270, we can see that we have the biggest econ, we have the biggest science, we have the biggest industry. Basically, we're winning in almost every single metric. I said biggest industry, that's not true. We're losing on ships per hour and we're losing on industry, but not by enough for it to matter given our inventory. It'll take a long time for this little gap to catch up, and with our econ advantage and conquest, we should be able to get ahead. So as of tick 270, things are looking pretty good. So a different side discussion that happened in our big picture thread was the question whether Yeah is actually AFK. And the activity report is great for this. You can bring it up and have a look at a player and see when they're logging in. And we can see by looking at Ya's upgrade activity that he's updating every 6 to 15 hours depending. And so he's just not playing often enough. So this player is sort of your best case scenario. He's never actually going to go AFK. He's not paying enough attention to actually defend against anything. You can probably plan your surprise attacks for the gaps in his activity. This is just the mark of an easy to kill player who thinks that because the game only updates once per hour, they can log in a couple of times per day and keep up with it. The truth of this game is if you don't have notifications turned on, you need to log in every 2 hours for sure. So you want to be there every other tick, both before the tick and after the tick. You have to gather all of the science data for everybody at that time. You have to look at all the attacks. You have to look at all your defenses, and so on. And if you have defenses where the auto ruler is telling you that you only have 1 tick to respond, then you need to log in potentially more frequently to make sure you're there. If you log in every 2 hours, the beauty of it is that covers for you 3 ticks. You get the tick before when you log in. You're there for a tick, and then you see the tick after that. And so then 2 hours later, when you log in again, you're going to get the tick after that, and so on. So you'll have complete visibility of the game. An alarm clock is useful to help you do that overnight, but that's the reality. If you want to be on top of this game, you will need to be awake all the time. This is pretty interesting here. You can see how the game has moved between tick 240, which is where the time machine is on my big display, versus the screenshot I have here from tick 293. So you can see that the Purple Alliance has moved down and taken out most of Ice 9, and we've moved up and taken out most of iHex RT. Angry Cabbage is sandwiched between us, and it's around this time that I realize that I really should have added Angry Cabbage to our alliance, because he's going to be sandwiched between us and Kane. So here's the problem with adding him. if we add him, he'll never be anything more than a bit player. He's right on the front line. He doesn't have a lot of stars. He's going to get ground to a pulp as a result of the impending clash. And so I don't like to take people on just to have them king make my team. But in this case, I didn't spend enough time thinking about the alternative, which is if I don't do it, what will Kane do? And it's around now that I realize, hang on a second, I probably need to invite Angry Cabbage into the alliance proper as opposed to just supporting him and giving him advice. And this is several days too late for that realization. Kane has already got Angry Cabbage on his side, and I don't know it yet. And I'm just now starting to reach out and tell people, hey, I think we should change this. So here I am at 4 o'clock on Monday the 18th of September saying, hey, I'm starting to get worried about how we look. If people see our weapons advantage, they'll now know we have a 5-way alliance because they can see that the 5 of us have top weapons in the game. And in the south, it seems really fine because we're going to win, and there's quite a few people between us and Wazn, so we have space to expand. But in the north, we know we're facing Kane, who's a master strategist and a good diplomat, and so I realize he will soon be trying to turn Angry Cabbage against us. And the truth is, as I write this, he's already done that 3 days ago, or maybe 2 days ago, but in that order of magnitude. So I'm 3 days too late with this realization. Angry Cabbage is already planning on coming after us. We just don't know it yet. And, you know, I'm saying, what should we do about that? And I'm busy asking my alliance instead of just taking action because I want to involve everybody and I want to get their opinions. But this time waste, as it turns out, doesn't matter because I'm already too late by so much. But it's also potentially a weakness in my play, trying to involve other people in my decisions instead of just realizing that when the time for action has come, it's better to just send a message right away. So someone asked me how it's going, or who he's been working with, and I say he's mainly been working with me, but we should worry about what Kane is going to be doing. And then I saw him, meaning Angry Cabbage, launch ships towards our border, and so at this point, this is only like half an hour later from my original message, I've realized that I'm actually too late. You know, the actual movement of his ships has confirmed that there's already a deal likely in place against us. So let's advance through the game and see how that goes to catch up to this 322 color scheme. I'll go ahead and put the color scheme in. We can see that now we've got Angry Cabbage in purple to reflect his joining the Kane Alliance. We've got people who have quit sitting between us. That's easy pickings for both sides. And so things are going to change quite quickly as we advance. Maybe we'll go 20 ticks at a time here. So 20 ticks at a time, that's a whole cycle, another whole cycle, another whole cycle, another whole cycle. And here we are at tick 325. So as you can see, we've more or less evenly eaten up all the AI people who are between us. But we're in the very unfortunate position now that Angry Cabbage is set to attack us, and you know, that means that we need to worry about what's going to happen, because if he suicides into us, we're going to be in real trouble. By the way, another thing that I missed here is I had Angry Cabbage's API key and he reset it, and probably at the instant that he reset it, I should have worried that that meant he had made an accommodation with another player. I, for some reason, just shrugged it off as him being cautious and not wanting his API key flapping in the breeze out there when Joffrey quit. But the more correct interpretation probably was, as of the time that his API key disappeared, he was probably in an alliance with someone else. And we can actually see when that time was if we look at our API keys and find him here. Oh, actually, unfortunately, in this view, I no longer know which key was his. So we know he was one of these dead keys, but we can't tell which one he was, unfortunately. But under normal circumstances, just after somebody revokes their API key, you can come to this screen and it will tell you what the last tick you had data for them was, and that it can help you pinpoint when they made an arrangement with another player or what was going on with that key. So here it is, of course, the screenshot and the time machine look the same because we're looking at pretty much the same tick. We're on 325 in the big picture and 322 from the screenshot. So this is where we're at. We've got the Kane Alliance looking pretty nasty up here. We've got this Green Alliance still looking sizable. We've got Wazn's Alliance here and this other Green Alliance here, and these red guys looking like they might be in a bit of trouble. And so this is where we're at. And the date here is the 19th of September. So this is just before a critical message from Wazn that should swing the whole game. So we can see that adding Angry Cabbage to Kane's Alliance is giving an edge, and that's a real problem. And then we're in the business of capturing his stars, and if we could go fast enough, maybe we can get that edge over to us. So, you know, I want to be optimistic here, I want to rally the troops and get us going against this player, but the truth is, if he suicides into us, that is going to be a problem, and that's a very likely outcome here. If he feels an obligation to Kane that he would just kamikaze his ships in our direction, and then that means he gets all of his existing ship inventory injected into us, while Kane gets a bunch of easy territory, and that in fact is basically what happens to us, and that makes this the mistake that most surely loses us the game, though there's another pretty big one coming in not too long. So meanwhile at this point, I'm also worrying that Kane and Wazn are probably communicating and planning to pinch us from the other side. If they do, it's 2 versus 3 and we're done. You know, if we only have a third, we're surely lost, and it doesn't matter how big our edge is. I keep telling my team we need econ like it's going out of style. We're just not building enough money to keep our science ahead of everybody. And we really want to be ahead of everybody in all of the big 3 techs, weapons, Terra, and menu. At this stage of the game, it's pretty hard to say whether Terra or weapons is more important. I would argue Terra probably is, but it all depends. But in any event, one of those two is top, the other one is second, and menu is a fairly distant third actually. So if you can only pick 2 techs, weapons and Terra are the way to go. Or maybe Terra and weapons, depending. So keep telling people, you know, don't spend any of your money, buy cheap science if it's less than $100. Otherwise, put all your money into econ, let's build that econ, get those econ engines running. I'm not sure this message really resonates with my team. We never do wind up with enough money to really have the build up that we need. So advancing 19 ticks here, the alliance table looks good. At this point, we have managed to get a pretty clear econ lead, although still not enough in my view. And we also have a lead in every metric that matters. The only place where we're behind is industry, but the purpose of industry is to feed ships per hour, and we have enough of a manufacturing advantage that we have that. So we kind of have it all. If it was just us and Kane's Alliance, that should be a war we could win. We just have to worry about the other big alliances in the game, like Wazn's and the green folks in the north. So here, the plot suddenly thickens. Yeoman notices that Wazn is going into the Procurer and asks if we should bolster the Procurer to defend ourselves versus Wazn. And in my view, I think we shouldn't do it. Wazn had reached out to me now about Kane, and though we haven't yet actually agreed on what to do about it, I'm pretty excited about the idea that we can push north versus Kane. And so in part of that, I discover that I've got Nocturus improperly colored because he was part of the green players to begin with, and so that changes the color scheme situation. So at this point it looks like we can get Wazn to go north with us, and if he pushes north and we push north, that's great. There's lots of space for my allies to push into the Procurer and Steve Tall and Chuck Norris and get their expansion room to the north here, and that should be terrific. So as of tick 363, things are looking pretty good for us. And so let's just go have a look at what all alliances looks like at this time. Let's get there on the main map as well so that we can see it properly. So 365, close enough to 363 to get a look at what's going on. And the all alliances table looks all green. That's great. It's especially great if Wazn does what he's supposed to do and goes north. He's made a comment to me at this point that he can eat the green players to his north, that they've agreed that they're kind of done. And so that should be awesome, because if they abandon to him and give him all this territory, that gives him a super fast route into Jarmuth and Deep Six, and that should enable us to pincer these folks and win. So at this stage of the game, you know, where we're talking about the date is mid-September, and it looks like we've got a 2v1 versus Kane. I'm very optimistic that we are going to win the game. So tick 363 is Thursday the 21st of September at 5:30 in the morning. So let's go have a look at what the state of the conversation with Wazn is at that time. So Wazn originally reached out to me on the 20th of September saying let's go north, and by Thursday morning we're talking about what's happening, and I'm saying we might be able to hold against Kane. It doesn't look like it, but maybe for a limited time we can, but we need to tip the scales. It's really bad for us that Arlo has quit, and fairly urgent that Wazn go and take him out. So in my mind, I'm being very clear here that Wazn, who is just here, needs to get over here and take out this player. And so I ask, because he's a bit far, is Nuck Chorus in his group? Maybe he can get Nuck to go north and take him out. And we need somebody to get there before Deep Six does, because if Deep Six takes all these stars, he's going to be a real problem. So in my mind, that's the situation on Thursday the 21st, and Wazn is saying that Compton is going to give it up and cede his stars to him, and Nuck was part of the alliance, unsure if he's going to quit or what. He's also figured out their friends from outside the game. He's saying he hasn't passed any weapons to Southern players. He thought that everybody's developing at the same rate independently. So I thought he and Compton were working close together, and so now I'm keen to see how quickly he can push through, and that's what I'm asking him. This is Thursday the 21st of September, 5:25 in the morning. That is the same time as we're at in the time machine. So at this stage in the game, I'm trying to make sure that he knows he's got to soak up Compton as fast as possible. If possible, he's got to take out this new AI player, and that is, in my mind, the top of things. And he says he's already got carriers en route. He seems surprised that he's only sending one ship in each, so there's going to be a few hiccups, and that's just the sign of an incompetent handoff. You know, this player should be injecting his forces into the enemy as the handoff comes in from behind, and that's the way you do it so that you can actually do max damage, and that's not happening. So I say, hey, you might know how to explain to him how to get it done, and then Wazn starts talking about tech trading, and, you know, I'm willing to do that, but there's no easy way to do it. We're not connected. We're not going to be connected anytime soon, and Wazn is mainly worried about a Terra gap. So we talk about tech, and we agree we're going to do some tech trading for Terra for Manu. He wants weapons too, but I don't see a way of trading weapons outside the alliance. Everybody's too chicken of what could happen if we give the weapons advantage out. And this might be a small mistake, because maybe it gets us off on the wrong foot with Wazn at this point. A whole day has gone by, and I haven't seen a lot of progress here. So if we advance the time machine by 20 ticks to see what happens, we can see that he moves a little bit north, but if we go back and forth here just to see what these 20 ticks look like, he's also moving south. So you can see the red stars in the south turning blue, and the other stars in the south turning blue. And so that's a bad sign that we're not seeing a lot of progress in the north direction compared to what it should be, given that those stars are supposed to be given away freely, and we're seeing about an equal amount of progress in the south. So that's a bit of an issue. Also, it's worth looking at Wazn in the all-surviving empires. So if we just take a look at him from a star count perspective, he is currently at 58 stars. And so what we'd like to know is, you know, how fast does that grow over the next few moves here. So if we advance, let's say at about tick 440, we can see that Wazn is growing in both the south and the north, but his growth in the south is pretty significant here. He's getting close to our border. If we look at the growth here, for Wazn. We start at tick 360. This is about when we've agreed he's going to go north. And so watch the growth of the blue empire in the north and in the south. He does grow in the north, but also in the south. He grows in the north, but also in the south. He grows in the north, but also in the south. So by tick 440, he still hasn't reached the enemy that we're supposed to be attacking in the north. On the other hand, he's basically breathing down our necks in the south at the same time. So at this point, starting to get suspicious that Wazn's not really playing the game. It looks like what he's doing is making some progress in the north, dragging his feet, claiming that Connor's not doing a good handover, with the express goal of eating up easy players, while we have been involved in a week-long, heated battle here, where we're just barely making any progress. We're just barely holding the line against these folks. They're really beating on us, and we need the pressure from the north to alleviate the pressure over here. But it looks like what Wazn is doing is saying he's going to help out, but playing a very clever waiting game where he figures if he just waits it out a little bit, we'll both get so weak that that will cinch him the victory. And this does not sit well with me at all. It looks very deliberate. It looks very calculated. And Wazn's a good enough player to make that calculation and try to make it go his way. So here we are on tick 440 in the time machine. Let's see what that looks like timestamp-wise in our big picture and where we're at. So here we are at tick 441. As we can see, the screenshot matches the time machine map. The alliances picture still looks pretty okay. My commentary is we've got a stalemate in the north and it's hurting us pretty hard. Guava Trader's making good progress against Carnolian, and that should give us some good news from the north. But I had to do my best to get as efficient as I could just to sort of maximize my defense force. I mean, I'm definitely undersized versus Kane. I'm holding the line, but it's not great. And so my message to the team is, I think we can prevail, but we need to do a whole bunch more micromanagement. And I'm hoping that our southern allies can use this opportunity to eat up the territory in their borders to make the overall alliance stronger. So I'm still complaining about econ, but all the other categories look okay. Figuring if we can ramp econ, we can get there. We can see Kane has grown by a lot more than us. He's grown by 20 stars since tick 386, and Wazn's alliance has grown by 44 stars, and in that time, we've grown by 8 stars. Those are not good ratios. Kane growing by 44 stars and in the wrong direction is really stressing me out. Because that means that things are not going our way. Imagine if he had taken 44 stars and they were all up here. This would be totally different because now there'd be pressure on this border. This pressure is supposed to have appeared by now, and it has not. We're talking it's the 24th of September, and we got nothing. We're losing ships left, right, and center over here, and it looks like he's just playing delaying action. We do have a good ship lead, so that's something. But Wazn's team is also getting ships awfully fast. So we need to get there to the front and I talk a little bit about what I think better routing is and wish us luck. So I'm still feeling reasonably optimistic at this phase. Things haven't quite yet fallen apart. Yeoman wisely suggests that maybe we should bring in Charon and Nuck. My opinion is we should eat Nuck, but we should probably think about Charon. And why do I say this? It's because Nuck's position is just god-awful. He has this huge long front with Cyan Alliance. If he allies with us, they will eat him for breakfast before he can say, what the? And so if we don't try to eat him before they do, we're going to lose that race. If we try to put him in as an ally for us, he's going to wind up being a huge risk because he'll be under enormous pressure by them. He'll have our weapons tech and potentially hand it off to people that we don't want to have it, and just generally put us at risk. And we know he's a new player. He's one of Joffrey's friends. There's not too many of those green players left in the game at this point. Well, we don't need one of them on our team. So that's a pretty sure thing. And so, I make that argument here, and I think I convince people that we should take on Charon and not the other. And so Yeoman goes with that, and Charon is a great ally, as it turns out. So maybe this is a decision we should have made earlier. So, Monday, September 25th, we have a problem. Wazn keeps growing. He's still not fighting the people we need him to fight. He's going to be big. He's going to win the game. I think it's important that we attack him in the south. We're running out of space here. We got to get up there. But this decision is probably the final tipping point of the game. The fact that we can't trust Wazn to do his part of the job and that we have to attack him means that we're setting ourselves up for a 2v1 versus us if Wazn won't see sense and go the right direction. So this message to my team is on Monday the 25th of September at 1 in the morning. Let's compare it to what's going on in the conversation with Wazn. Just a reminder, on the 20th of September, we're supposed to be going north, we say. On the 25th of September, what we've got is Wazn complaining that we're attacking him. So he complains about that on the 25th at 9 in the morning. He's complaining of these clashes, and I try to put it as cleanly as I can so that we can get this moving in the right direction. Remember that at this point, I'm already well frustrated that he hasn't made more progress in the north. We've seen him grow by 44 stars. We know that's a problem for us. It's a problem for the whole map because those 44 stars aren't in the territory he's supposed to be taking in the north. They're in the south and in the north, and so he's definitely growing the wrong direction. So I try to express all that to him. I say, in the thread, I say I need you to get Arlo before Deep 6 does. Well, let's have a look at what happened. Arlo's stars go to Deep 6, Deep 6, Deep 6, Deep 6, one to Nocturus and another to Deep 6. So where I had said, get in there yourself or get Nuck to take him out, what we've got actually is Deep 6 capitalizing on this AI player while everybody else is twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing. And this is exactly the kind of thing that is going to make Kane's Alliance win. It's exactly the kind of thing we anticipated days ago, said had to be dealt with. It's not dealt with. So I'm trying to say, where are you doing your end of the bargain? I don't see it. It's not happening. So I say, it seems like we agreed we'd put pressure on Kane, but instead of going north, you're going mine, south into my allies. And I try to be clear that we want to trade tech between us, but you don't seem to have agreed to that. I'd love to see Uwe grab Nuck's territory and Yeoman grab the Procure and you getting to Deep 6. But, what I'm saying we're going to see and what we're doing, they're not happening. So Wazn comes back saying, no, I'm really doing it. It's all great. When we made the agreements, he had already started fighting the Procure. He rerouted everything he didn't need to hold the line against him north, as would be sensible. As far as he was concerned, he's a neutral power and fair game. The only reason you didn't rush him like your allies have done is because that would have been at odds with holding the north. And so his complaining is that, we're pushing into him. He needs us to give back the stars. And I didn't pay enough attention to this statement here. As of right now, I've been down with an irritating head cold and would honestly be fine getting shot of this game, which is simply causing me headaches. To that end, I could simply cede to Kane, who I bear no ill will and only suggested a pack against out of control lead he seemed to be garnering. So this statement contains two very important things. It's, a warning that if I don't work with him, he's going to work with Kane and we're going to lose. And it's also, more importantly, a message that he's not trying to win the game anymore. He just needs to play the game out in some way. He's got real-life issues that are getting in his way, and that's a problem. Because when I do all my negotiating, it's always with the idea that everybody wants to be number one. And the fact that he's saying he doesn't want to be number one, or that he's not trying to be number one, gives a more charitable explanation to his lack of actual progress on the real game. And I probably should have paid attention to that and decided, I should do something about that. But unfortunately, I get very distracted by his next paragraph, which is basically threatening that he's going to go do that and we're going to get screwed. And that really doesn't sit well with me. In my mind, he's betrayed us so far. He's talked a good game, but it looks like he's just making excuses and trying to use the threat of a worse outcome to force me to accept the fact that he's not really doing his part. So, I try again. to say what I think is reasonable here. I don't want it to be an acrimonious end. I pride myself on clear communication. I don't know why you're going the direction you're going. I can't really dissuade you from working with Kane, because if you work with Kane, that's clearly going to beat us, and it's going to make one of you win, and so that's a winning strategy for you. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. What I'm really trying to say here, though, is, if you want to betray me and work with Kane because that seems better to you, feel free, but winning with us ought to make you feel win also, and so why go that way when you can win with us? And, that argument does not seem to appeal. He doesn't even answer this message. This message is on the 25th of September at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And, 2 days later, there's no answer at all. It's clear that I've lost this negotiation, and we're gonna regret it. So, he says he was in position right when Yeoman invaded him. If I'd made an effort to compromise in action instead of just words, I'd be fighting there right now. And, I don't know what to say. From my point of view, he betrayed me. From his point of view, I betrayed him. There's no right answer here, but the reality is it's a diplomacy game, and when you turn people against you, that does not work out. So at the same time as the deal with Wazn is falling apart, we got Nukchorus quitting, and that's really bad, because that just gives his team a huge expansion territory to take from the AI. It's already developed, already built up. That is a best case scenario for them. They can be at peace with the Kane team and still have a lot of growth opportunity in their area, while Kane and I tear each other up and they can take the win. So from my point of view, this looks like a continued masterstroke of strategy on his part to clean up the board while Kane's team and my team smash each other to bits. In actual fact, the deal he's made with Kane is that they'll basically just help that team out and take third place. A deal I would never make. That's just not reasonable to take third when you could win. But it is the deal that they did make. And so that's even worse for us because it means that he's never going to be incentivized to do anything other than be a huge thorn in our sides. And so that's going to be a real problem as it's a game-ending deal when the top two players agree who's going to win. There's no way to turn them against each other. There's no way to get out of it. So at this point, although I don't yet know it, the game is essentially lost. But what we do is we bring Charon formally into our alliance, and so now we wind up with a new big picture thread with new people in it, where we can talk about what's going to go on from here. So that's as of tick 467. So at this stage, I'm still not too pessimistic. It's the 25th of September. The game has been going for 19 days. It's a very long time, as these games go. But it looks to me like even if you add Wazn and Kane together, maybe it's not so bad. So let's have a look at that. We have 1,416 production. Together they have about 1,850. We have 2,000 econ. Together they have about 2,000 econ. They're pretty far ahead of us on industry, and science is a problem, but it's not maybe insurmountable. And so I'm hoping that my folks over here can make more progress on this border than we're making over here. At this point, we're still holding our northern border. We have not yet noticed Deep Six heading our way. It doesn't look so bad quite yet. We know it's bad to be in a 2v1 scenario, but I'm still hoping that we can make it. So here on the 27th of September in the morning, I'm fully aware that I bungled the situation, telling my team about it, talking about what the demands were and what the disconnect was. But it's kind of all over but the crying now, because this is clearly going to swing against us. So trying to rally the troops, make sure we hang on for the big fight. Maybe we can still make it, maybe we can't. So now, I wind up grouping them together. This is the right thing to do. We should look at the real numbers and see how it looks. So let's switch that color scheme and have a look at what that looks like on the leaderboard. So this doesn't look so good anymore. Econ, they're ahead. Industry, they're ahead. Science, they're ahead. Ships, they're ahead. Every dimension looks bad. It's clearly time for some desperate measures. So here we are on tick 570, Friday the 29th of September, 23 days into the game. It's not looking unachievable. We have started closing the science gap. We still are holding the line versus the Kane Alliance over there, although the beginning of the end has begun as Deep Six has arrived over here, and that is going to be a problem. He's got some thousands of ships flying in, and with him as well as Kane beating on me, it's going to be an issue. So it's around this time that I realize we're going to have to do something drastic. So at this point, I asked Vogo to let Guava soak him up. I'd really prefer he let me soak him up, but that seems immodest to ask for. But unfortunately, Vogo seems to miss this message or not want to respond to it, so nothing gets said. And unbeknownst to me, Guava's losing his taste for this game around this time, and he wants to quit as well. So that's going to cause us some huge issues. So this is on Saturday, the 30th of September at noon. And when this doesn't get traction, I realize that really I have to sacrifice myself because I'm on the front, and if I don't do it, we will suffer. So here it is. Later that day, I say I should hand off to Master and Uguay, and the idea is that Master gets my inside ring stars and Uguay gets the outside ring, and we're going to coordinate this, and so we start setting up the handoff, and it should work out alright. So I wind up coloring myself red after the red shirts in Star Trek, so that we can tell who's supposed to die, and work on handing off those stars as fast as possible. So with that color scheme in place, we can watch the handover. I've also colored Guava blue because around this time is when I realized that he wanted to quit. So here we can see we did manage a pretty efficient takeover. This is tick 611. This is just 20 ticks later on tick 631. But what went wrong here, if we walk through that a little slower, is that even though these stars got handed off very quickly, the enemy is coming down on me at the same time, and unfortunately, Master doesn't actually have enough ships coming in for this takeover to hold the line. So even though I'm getting a large number of ships converged on a star here to try to do some damage, these incoming attacks from Kane are largely successful. And so this handover actually turns out to be quite weakening for us. We would have been better off if I just kept fighting the good fight instead of trying to hand over, because the progress that gets made here is dramatic and damaging, and we just never really recover from this. Meanwhile, the fact that Guava is not really playing, but he's also not really handing over, is slowing us down. Vogo's willing to hand over too, but he doesn't know what to do at this point. It's kind of too late, and this is where it just all topples. So if we advance through this, we can see that the effect of my handover is actually basically to weaken us enough that Kane and Deep Six get the territory, and at this point the game is all but lost. Even though we have actually made good progress up the west side, our failure to hold the line over here really cost us the game. So I guess in summary, there's really three mistakes that made this game. The first was I didn't bring Angry Cabbage in at the beginning. The second was I didn't forgive Wazn for what looked to me like a calculated attempt at betrayal. And the third was we executed a bad handoff. It was probably too late for us at that phase no matter what, but maybe if we had just focused on holding the line, we could have made more progress in the west, and we could have still had more even battle. I mean, even at this point where it's lost, It still looks like we have almost half the map. We can look at the leaderboard and see what that looks like on all alliances. It doesn't look so great. You know, they have 500,000 ships to our 300,000. I'd say at this point, you could say this game is clearly lost by the numbers. It's all over, but the final victory. So congratulations to Kane and his team. Excellent work on diplomacy. Made all the right trade-offs where we made all the wrong ones. But it was a great game, one of the best I've played, and a lot of fun. So thanks for listening.